Welcome to the Cognitive Crucible, produced by the Information Professionals Association. Our website is information-professionals.org, where you can find links and information about today's conversation and get access to members-only content. Join John Bicknell and explore all aspects of our generational challenge, cognitive security. The Cognitive Crucible is a forum that presents different perspectives and emerging thought leadership related to the information environment. The opinions expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of or endorsement by the Information Professionals Association.
My guest today on the Cognitive Crucible is Matt Venhaus, who currently serves as the Mission Area Lead for Cognitive Security and Operations in the Information Environment at the University of Maryland's Applied Research Laboratory for Intelligence and Security, and you will hear us refer to this as ARLIS. His primary research interest is in modeling the socio-technical complexity of the modern information environment to support meaningful training in the human domain of competition and conflict. Matt is also a retired United States Army Psychological Operations Officer. Matt Venhaus, welcome to the Cognitive Crucible.
Thanks, John. I'm really excited to be here, and thanks for taking the time to talk to me.
And I'd like to just mention briefly here at the outset that Matt's opinions are his own and do not represent the opinions of the University of Maryland or the Applied Research Lab for Intelligence and Security. You've spent your career both in military uniform and post-active duty, immersed in national security matters. How would you summarize today's climate?
I'd say frightening. To me, the current climate represents a huge change from what we're used to. A century of can we be more lethal, have greater range, increase our protection is being supplanted by some different nuances of what it means to be secure as a nation. And so I think it's frightening in that way because it challenges our view of what it takes to be more secure. And things we would have done in the past to be more secure aren't necessarily things that will make us more secure now.
Great. Some in our audience, I realize, might be unfamiliar with ARLIS. Could you give us a quick 101 on ARLIS and maybe touch upon the various mission areas of which you lead one?
Sure. ARLIS is a university-affiliated research center. What that means is the Department of Defense sponsors 14 different, they're referred to as UARCs, or university-affiliated research centers, to leverage the capabilities of specific universities with Tier 1 research programs to conduct advanced research in specific topics for the nation. And so ARLIS, which is the most recently established of the 14 UARCs, is specifically chartered to support the intelligence and security community, integrating social and behavioral sciences along with AI, autonomy, augmentation, advanced computing. So if you think of our Venn diagram of being the human and social systems, language and culture and linguistics and those kinds of things, paired with some of the modern AI and advanced computing capabilities, that gives you kind of the ARLIS secret sauce. We like to talk about socio-technical solutions for the human domain. We very much exist to bring the human domain to bear in all of these cases. So with that in mind, our 5 mission areas right now are modeling and mitigating insider risk, enabling cognitive security, which is my mission area, operationalizing AI, autonomy, and augmentation, ensuring trustworthy supply chains, and augmenting collective intelligence. Now, those 5, there's a tremendous amount of crossover between those 2 because the things that assist in learning about cognitive security may also help the insider risk teams figure out more about why people become an insider risk to an organization, or where the people in a supply chain are a part of that supply chain's risk. So there's a lot of crossover between the missionaries.
Right. I'd like to rewind on an earlier point you made. So you're talking about Arliss is a university affiliated research center. Could you help tease apart what the difference is between a UARC and a FFRDC and a national research laboratory? Those three different kinds of agencies could be confused easily.
Sure. Yeah, and they're all part of the enterprise of research and engineering for the nation. The national labs, which are kind of, if you like to think of as wholly owned subsidiaries of the government, FFRDCs and UARCs are chartered by the government for specific support. FFRDCs have a broad mandate across a wide technical swath, where the UARCs leverage a specific capability that is core to a university's ability to operate or a university's research focus. So they're all three ways that the government discovers new and innovative things and conducts its research, test and evaluation, experimentation, the kinds of things that go on in the RDT&E world, but they operate on slightly different models. So we have the ability to leverage anything on campus to support our work, and that's a little different than the FFRDCs, which are often run by a company or corporate entity that have their own set resources that they operate from, unlike the UARCs that have a university backing them.
I see. Here in COVID, the collective we have gotten more accustomed to working remotely and still getting stuff done. But that said, do you think that Arliss's proximity to the national capital region is beneficial in being able to coordinate efforts with people in the government who need more face-to-face interactions?
Yeah, very much so, John. I think there are a couple things about being in the NCR and being at a UARC that make us uniquely positioned to do things that benefit the government. And as many of the people that listen to this podcast know, there is parochialism and rice bowls and tribalism that exists within the information enterprise. And so there are information professionals out there in various different fields and disciplines that don't always see eye to eye with one another. A UARC in the National Capital Region is like Switzerland. We're a neutral place. We exist to study a phenomenon and to improve capabilities, but we're not beholden to any one of the stovepipes or tribes or even services. We're able to really be a good convening place. It helps that we have a 130,000 square foot SCIF on the campus of a major university that's easily accessible. We've got a metro stop. You can come out and come to Arliss pretty easily and come there and be on neutral ground. So I think that's important.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks for painting the picture of what Arliss is and how Arliss nests into the larger national security apparatus. So as we mentioned a few moments ago, you lead Arliss's cognitive security mission area. So let's start talking about that and maybe start with how you define cognitive security.
So for me, cognitive security is the field of influence and the protection from influence, whether that is at an individual, group, organizational, or societal level. So you can feel personally cognitively secure, or you can have a cognitively secure nation or a cognitively secure society. And it's all about the ability to prevent undue influence and to possess the ability to influence others. So again, at the individual all the way up to the national or society level.
Right.
Terms that you might hear around DoD, like operations in the information environment or IO or IW, or pick one from column A, fall into the broader scope of what is cognitive security in our view.
Right. We've had a podcast with Austin Branch. This was a while back. He was actually the second episode, and we'll put a link to this episode in the show notes here. But Austin described operations in the information environment or cognitive security as a nexus of a lot of other capabilities, or just about every other area of national security and government. Cognitive security in this environmental climate is right at the middle. So it touches upon, or is dependent upon, so many other things: electronic warfare, cyber, critical infrastructure, security, defense. It touches the Department of State, Department of Homeland Security. It's like, everything these days can be articulated in information terminology. And yet, until relatively recently, there was somewhat of an advocacy gap relative to operations in the information environment. It doesn't mean that there weren't experts and people who had an interest in advancing information operations and cognitive security, but there wasn't such a cohesive effort as there seems to be now. Does that jive at all with some of your outlook on cognitive security?
I would say it does and it doesn't, because I think there's a lot more interest in cognitive security. I think some of the things that people have seen recently have caused them to be concerned about cognitive security. I think we still have the advocacy gap that you talked about. I think there's still an investment gap that's out there. We as a nation talk a lot about things that impact cognitive security, but when I look at what we as a nation are investing time, energy, effort, and research into, the investment doesn't match the rhetoric. And so I think, the advocacy and the organization, really, it is still very much a coalition of the willing, and their will is getting a little bit stronger, but it is not a well-organized, concerted national effort, in my opinion, yet. And part of what we hope to do at Arliss is to help get us closer to that, help get us closer to a true national effort. In the same way that we decided to put a man on the moon and then seriously invested in the technology, the development, and it was a national effort. We're not yet to national effort when it comes to cognitive security and operations in the information environment.
All right. Well, I appreciate that last point you made as far as a national effort, whole of nation, whole of government. These types of sayings, sometimes I think people roll their eyes a little bit when they hear that, but there's something to that, I think, where we had a conversation with Mike Vickers that came out a couple of weeks ago, and he gave a really interesting nuanced response that started out kind of like how I just described, a little bit like, people talk, roll out these tropes, and it's like, well, if you say the words, then that's sufficient. Well, no, if you say the words, that is not sufficient. But it's not like literally every single government agency or every single person in America needs to be, on hyper alert and working towards mitigating information related challenges. But there needs to be some kind of a nuanced, thoughtful way of bringing to bear all of our instruments of national power to address this challenge. How do you think about that kind of a project?
I think about it, and I'm a person of a certain age, I guess. So So I have Cold War experience. I did the drill that got me under my desk in elementary school when we were supposed to duck and cover. And I think when people roll their eyes at the idea of whole of government or whole of nation, they think of very consolidated, very unitary command kind of approaches to something where, one person directs everyone and everyone does what that person says. And it's really not going to be that way. It's really going to be each within their own lane, each doing the things that they are traditionally chartered to do, but doing it towards a common purpose. So too often, whole of government means, well, this department or agency needs to be able to tell that department or agency what they have to do or can't do. No, whole of nation means both of those departments and agencies know what their role is in advancing the common cause, and they perform that role in a complementary fashion, not in a competitive fashion. So that's why you get so much of the eye rolling, I think, because people want to think of that as consolidated effort and not consolidation of purpose. I think we can consolidate purpose without having to consolidate capabilities or forces or organizations. You had Austin on not long ago, and his famous saying has always been, "You don't have to own it to integrate it." And I think that's important when we talk about whole of nation or whole of society. Building planting a victory garden in the Second World War was part of a whole of nation effort, but it was not the federal government telling you, you should plant corn today. That's not what we're looking for.
I'd like to rewind for just a moment, Matt, and go back to your definition of cognitive security. And you said, well, there's the individual human, and it can ladder all the way up to the societal level. How do machines fit into that problem space? My understanding is that machines can almost be thought of as brains in and of themselves, and then there's human-machine interface. What kind of thoughts do you have around that?
So we describe that at Arliss as socio-technical complexity. The convergence of human endeavor and automated endeavors that continues to occur over our lives are becoming more complicated, more complex, because they are becoming more intertwined with the technology that supports us or enables us, or in some cases operates on our behalf. And so that's why when we study the human domain, we study it from the socio-technically complex reality of today's world, which says you can't extract this idea of the human from the machine. That makes it very much multidisciplinary research. Traditional, you think of a university and they have a college of engineering, and they have a college of psychology, and they have a college of the arts. Here at Arliss is a relatively small organization. Over 50 different academic disciplines are represented in advanced degrees. And so when you pair a computer scientist with a rhetorician, with a behavioral scientist, you come to find out that there is an intellectual hybrid vigor that comes from those kinds of interactions that models what we're seeing in the way that we live our lives today, intertwined with technology.
Yeah, for sure. Have you in your interdisciplinary work here, what would you say is the most surprising collaboration, or the most surprising concept or work that has been combined with other work. Like I'm just totally making this up, but like a study of animals combined with, cybersecurity. It was, there were these two researchers got together, and it's just amazing what they were able to advance, but bringing in completely different perspectives. Do you have any like example of something that is serious along those lines?
Yeah, as far as animals and cybersecurity, I would say, my dog has a Facebook page, but I don't think that counts. So no, I think there's a lot of fascinating research out there when you get into the interdisciplinary space, especially when you start talking about some of the nuances of language and culture and how language and culture changes when it encounters technology. And so we recently completed a study on Chinese influence in Africa around the Belt and Road Initiative, and found some really unique things when we paired data scientists with cultural and linguistic experts to be able to see how the behavior of populations online, especially multilingual populations, changed depending upon which language they were using, and often changed within a particular online message, because they might start tweeting in one language and then hashtag in a different language, which would then connect them to a whole different conversation. And so there's some fascinating discoveries there about where we feel more comfortable expressing certain emotions and behaviors. So you might be more reserved in your criticism of the government if you're tweeting in one language than if you're in the language that you grew up speaking at home. So that, and it's really interesting, especially the old joke of what do you call somebody that speaks 3 languages? Trilingual. What do you call somebody that speaks 2 languages? Bilingual. What do you call someone that only speaks 1 language? American. So most of the world is multilingual, and when multilingual and multicultural dynamics interplay with technical dynamics, there's some really interesting nuances there that inform us about why and how other cultures and other peoples are influenced.
Right. Yeah. When you were talking just a moment about bringing in interdisciplinary folks, there's a topic that interests me. I'm trying to get a couple of Jungian analysts onto the podcast. I don't have this locked in yet, but I'm interested to talk about archetypes and how archetypes can potentially be identified at scale. I suspect that individuals tend to inhabit certain archetypes. It's kind of like the movie. There was actually a couple of movies. What the heck was it called? Clash of the Titans, where you have this narrative going on with the actual people on the ground who are living out their own personal struggle and their own adventure, but they're actually being directed and managed and orchestrated by the gods like Zeus or Minerva or Ares. These different gods are actually pulling the strings, and I'm wanting to have a discussion around that as to how much archetypes do or don't influence people, and if cultures can be labeled with an archetype, or individual players within a nation state can be labeled with a dominant archetype, and how that can potentially inform the way we orient on this challenge. So
yeah, I think and I think that will be an interesting podcast. I look forward to listening to it. I would say challenge them on which is more universal, the archetype or the culture. We think of a standard set of archetypes crossing cultures and applying, everywhere. I think I think you'll find that the truth is that within cultures there are archetypes, and so it's not that a particular culture exhibits a particular archetype, which I think is a unfair characterization of any culture to say that all the people that belong to this culture are like this. It's a very you remember the original Star Trek series. Well, the one group is always logical and one group is always warlike, and that's to a degree, and I hate to say it, that's discriminatory, and some would say almost racist to say that all people of a certain culture have a certain behavioral archetype. What I think you're more likely to find is that within cultures, they have a different set of archetypes that exist within that culture, and some of them are the same as other cultures, and some of them are different than other cultures, and that's what leads us to see the cultures differently, is that they have different archetypes or different numbers of certain archetypes within their culture that make them culturally different. But I'd be very cautious about saying that there's a universal set of archetypes, and I know the Jungians might, some of them might disagree with that, but I would also say that I'd be very careful applying archetypes to culture.
Right. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense to me. Even at the individual level, I'm not an expert on this, but let's say that there are maybe a dozen, relatively well-defined archetypes. Well, my understanding is that all of those archetypes exist within me, assuming you subscribe to this. All of those exist within me. There might be 2 or 3 that tend to be my dominant way of navigating around the world, but all of them have some kind of an interaction with the way that I see the world. And I think that same concept could probably be applied to different cultures. It's not like you can just label this culture is logical. There we go, done.
Yep.
It's more like a blurring of the lines with a dominant archetype. Or there's the Greek god Zeus and the Roman god Juno. On one hand, they're the same archetype, but they might have different ways of manifesting within the culture. So yeah, it should be an interesting conversation.
Yep. Ask them about who the heroes are, because the idea of heroic, what makes someone heroic in a culture, is in some ways indicative of cultural values, and that varies widely from one culture to the next, what is considered to be a heroic archetype. So anyway,
yeah, good stuff. So anyway, that kind of a project, or that kind of thinking, is the same kinds of things that you guys are doing within your mission area at Arliss, it sounds like.
Yeah, and the great part about it is we're trying to take that from interesting conversations and discussions like you and I are having today into the realm of testing, evaluation, and proof. Because it's one thing for you and I to talk about how we understand a phenomenon. It's something else for that to be rigorously tested or experimented with in a controlled environment, and so that's what's really exciting about working at the UARC.
Yeah, no doubt. Speaking of interesting projects, on your website, Matt, there's another webpage that you're linked to. It's called Kama Muda. I might not be pronouncing that right, but could you give a beat on what that particular project is?
I can, because I think it points out a little bit of what we're talking about with the sociocultural complexity and the unique cultural attributes that come from studying. Your Sanskrit is pretty good. I would say you pronounce that well enough.
Okay.
It is a Sanskrit term for born out of love, but what it really refers to, because it doesn't translate well into English, is the awe factor. You know, when you see kittens or puppies or beautiful scenery or babies or whatever, there's an emotional connection that you make to that content. And what this particular study that led to that term being on our website is studied young people in Poland and Lithuania and the differences in the effects of emotion on their online behavior. So did they operate differently when certain emotions were present, and were those differences cultural in nature, or did they cross cultures? And so that was it leverages the unique capabilities that we have here as a university that has a very strong foreign language program, and so we were able to do research and partner with a lot of foreign partners because we have such strong linguistic capabilities and natural language processing capabilities and some of the other things like that that are important for the study of culture and language. We have our chief scientist is a cultural anthropologist, which is you think chief of science, you would have thought he would be somewhere in the hard sciences, but so leveraging that kind of soft science understanding with the hard science of data analytics and computational infrastructure and some of the work that's behind the machine learning that supports natural language processing. When you combine those things together, it can be powerful, and and it's cute, so.
Right. We hear so much about Twitter is the example that so many people bring up. It's like an outrage machine, and the algorithms promote things that are contentious, and you're off to the races. But it's like this Kama Muda is the opposite side of the same coin, I suppose, in that it's viral, but it's like why do cat videos go viral? It's not because it's an outrage; it's because it's the awe factor, the cute factor.
Yep. And I think it points to the fact that while the technology may have an algorithm that changes what's presented, the human also has an algorithm that within them that decides what they place importance on. So the Twitter algorithm may promote certain things because of the way the algorithm is designed. The human who observes what's on Twitter has within them a separate algorithm that says, this is what matters to me. This is what's important to me. This is what I value. This is what I care about. And so it's only when those things interact in a way that provokes action that the two can make something happen together. And if you only understand one or the other of those phenomenon, then you're not going to have a true understanding of why and how behavior occurs in the social and socio-technical context of the modern environment.
Right. I'd like to discuss more about your mission area at Arliss, Matt. What are some of the other projects that you guys have going on?
One of the things that I am most excited about that we're working on is the cognitive security proving ground, because all of the things that we've kind of talked about today scream for the ability to conduct advanced researching, testing, and you need a place to do that. You think of the physical proving grounds where they might study metallurgy and ballistics and be out there precisely measuring how much rolled homogeneous steel a particular round would be able to penetrate to come up with better armor or better weapons. The heart of that is proof. A proving ground exists to prove something. and to take something under test or under experimentation, whether that is an idea or a tool or a capability or a strategy, you have to have an environment built where you can do that kind of testing. So on the research side, that may mean that we need to be able to do some human subject testing. That may mean that we need to be able to curate some very specific data sets and have some analytic tools to conduct research. So you go to the proving grounds to enable your research. The proving ground allows you to do better research because it gives you research resources. Separately, and in some of our projects are involved in developing new capabilities. If you're going to develop a new capability, if you're going to create a new tool, let's say you're going to work on something like detecting sentiment in a population and doing sentiment analysis or topic extraction and stance detection, which says, how does a person feel, not just in general, but about a specific topic. You need an environment where you can experiment with your tool and test your tool to ensure that it functions as designed. You might also need that kind of an environment to do test and evaluation. There are a lot of capabilities, a lot of tools out there. Which one's better? Which one should we invest in? The Consumer Reports Underwriters Laboratory, NTSB kind of rating system that says this is better than that objectively because we've tested it. When Consumer Reports says which vacuum cleaners has the greatest suction power, it's because they've put a suctionometer on it and decided that that one does better than the others, and they've run it over 9,800 pieces of carpet to see what and measured what it extracts from that. That's the kind of thing you get from a proving ground when we start talking about test and evaluation. Is bring multiple products here and get us to help you understand which is better for specific applications and which is better in general, and where should you invest or not invest. A lot of people out there, still a fair amount of snake oil out there that needs to have a harsh light shined upon it. And then you get into, if you want to experiment with strategies, with ideas, if we believe we can influence another nation, if the U.S. wants to conduct influence on another nation, there's not a good place today for them to go say, let's try out this influence strategy and see how it works. Let's see in real time what happens when we employ these elements of a national influence strategy, or even a unit level influence strategy. If we're trying to convince a particular group to do or not do something, well, let's try it out. You have to have a place to try it out. You have to have a place where you can test it and go, that didn't work like we thought it would. That means you got to have a very realistic environment. And that's one of the key things we're trying to bring with the proving ground, is the best available reflection of both human behavior and socio-technical complexity. We'll experiment, we'll do test and evaluation, we even do training and wargaming in that space, so that you don't say, we see this all the time in DoD exercises, oh, well, then the population did this. Well, why did they do that? Well, because the controller said they did, or somebody played a white card, or, God forbid, somebody rolled some dice and said, well, look at that. You got 4 6s. Obviously, there was a riot in the streets. That to me is not meaningful experimentation. That doesn't inform the unit how to produce a better strategy or a better course of action. So, and I'm rambling because this is a topic I'm very passionate about, is, let us be in a position where we can say, I have confidence that this strategy will work, or I have confidence that this tool will work, or I have confidence that we're doing the best possible we're taking the best possible route to influence who we're trying to influence, to enhance our cognitive security. So,
Right.
sorry for going on a little long there, but that, like I say, that's important to me.
Yeah. Clearly, you and your colleagues are passionate about it. What is the current state of the cognitive security proving ground? Is it operationalized, or do you have, what's your timeline?
It's building.
Mhm.
And so elements of the cognitive security proving ground are in better states than others, and some of them, as is any small thing that's growing. So we have some curated data sets, we have some tools under test, we have some testing environments. We're doing something on sense making in the cognitive space, where we're testing a variety of tools there. But when we get to the modeling and simulation side of what we would do with wargaming and training, it's a little less mature. And so I think we're still a little ways out from being able to say, yep, come, we have a simulated population that you can try your technique out on. But that's our hope, is to have that up and running
Right.
fairly soon, and to be able to give people not just a realistic, looks like Facebook, looks like Twitter, acts like social media, but that the people behind it look like people, act like people, react like people.
Right. So when this is up and running, who do you foresee to be the customers, if you will, of the cognitive security proving ground?
So I see the primary customers now. As a DoD chartered UARC, it's obvious our first priority would be to DoD sponsors and those who are seeking to understand and employ influence. But I also think that there is, and you talked about whole of government and whole of nation, influence and the prevention of malign influence are of concern to lots of people. And so whether they be people from, let's say, the financial sector, who are worried about maintaining investor confidence and want to test out a set of tools or a set of theories, I think they could have a place. I think there's room for folks like the Global Engagement Center at State Department and others who are engaged in foreign influence, but there's also room for some of the local state places to come in and test things at their own level. And then we talk about the research community. We really see this as a resource for the research community, so that it is not it's not so burdensome on them to start a new research project. There are things that kind of enable research. So if you need a data set, if you need an environment, if you need a particular capability or computing power or whatever, it's already there for you, and you don't have to recreate that each time you start a new research project.
I'd like to wrap up, Matt, and ask you one of those kind of a capstone kind of a question. If you had the ear of some senior leaders, not just in America, but maybe in other nations, allied nations of the West, but if you could communicate, just like one or two things to our senior leaders to help them understand, a way forward through the challenges that we face relative to cognitive security and information, what types of things would you want to impart to them?
Two things, and it kind of circles back to where we started. First, I'd tell them, put your money where your mouth is. There's a lot of rhetoric and a lot of writing and a lot of, great paragraphs in NDAA language and shiny papers at being produced, concept papers being produced. But to date, there hasn't been any meaningful investment. When I say meaningful investment, I think of, one service in particular that you're familiar with from your own service. The Marine Corps stood down combat formations to stand up influence formations. They made a serious strategic choice about what was important. I think that's far too uncommon in the DoD right now, and nationally. You've got to invest in something if you say it's important. And when you say we need, one less tank battalion so we can have 10 more influence teams or cyber protection teams or whatever, then you're really, making a difference. I haven't seen that from the rest of DoD. I see, information as a joint function and not much behind that. So the first thing I tell them is, put your money where your mouth is. And then the second thing I'd tell them is the path to success does not flow through better, faster, stronger of what we're currently doing. The path to true national security is going to be a different path. And if you continue to pursue better, faster, stronger, you will more rapidly arrive at a place where your adversaries have dramatic advantage over you because they're not pursuing better, faster, stronger of the old things. They're pursuing new things and they're investing in new things.
All right. Well, wise words from a gentleman who has thought about this a lot.
A strong opinion from a guy who cares, I think, is probably a
okay. Yeah.
It's probably as I don't know about wisdom, but I know that it's something that I think we care about.
All right. I'll take that as a friendly amendment. And with that, Matt Venhaus, thank you so much for being on the Cognitive Crucible.
Hey, John, thanks for having me. It was really a lot of fun, and I hope to have more conversations like this in the future.
The Cognitive Crucible is the only podcast dedicated to increasing interdisciplinary collaboration between information operations practitioners, scholars, and policymakers. To find out more about the Information Professionals Association, visit us at information-professionals.org. Please support our podcast by giving us a 5-star rating and leaving a review.